Pat, I wanted to start with you sharing a little bit of the story, but I'll just begin from my version. I got to meet Pat with something called Inside 919, and he built an amazing platform pre-Facebook where we had how many thousand people ultimately in it?
4,948.
4,948.
None anonymous. None of them anonymous. Real
Small businesses getting to know each other, helping each other. But what I did is I watched Pat, who's a brilliant digital marketer, as well as many other things, get amazing success in his business. And he was building digital marketing stuff. And it seemed like his business was coming all from referrals, not digital marketing. And I was drawn to it. And Pat, I think you'll tell the story, but there was some class and I went, now that I understand the process Pat uses, I realize why I wasn't as successful in getting more clients. And I tell the story that years ago, I would do amazing talks and they'd be so inspired. They'd come back to me and said, "You're such a great speaker and coach. I hired a coach." And I go, wait a second, wait a second. I did a good talk. You liked me, even called me a coach, but you didn't hire me. And I thought there's something missing in this. But until I saw what Pat had to offer in his method, which I really give him a lot of credit for doing, and I did not have that easy answer to what was happening with it. When I found out about it, I said, "Pat, I want to build a program. I want a training. I want to get a book out. I want to take this to the world." And I like to be on stage, and Pat is comfortable being off stage in the background.
Well, and thank you, Martin, and thank you all. I see some of these faces. I said, man, I not only know those folks, I love those folks, and quite frankly, many of you were part of this. So I'll go back a little bit. I've always lived kind of in rural towns, okay, and in rural areas, networking is basically you help out the school board. You're part of the history society. Maybe you run for office or you do those kind of things. And in doing those things and in doing the work, you meet people and then they find out what you do and then they hire you. And so when I moved, my dad had cancer. I was in Colorado. I was the internet service provider for about a quarter of Colorado. We have thousands of members. And my dad had cancer. And so I said, you know what? I want more time with that daddy of mine. So I sold my business. We packed up. We moved to the 919 in North Carolina. And upon arriving there, after getting the family all settled in and everybody's in school and my sweetie's doing things, I opened the door and closed the door. And I said, you know what, Pat, you're alone. And it was a really humbling thing to be in a new place. And since I was an internet service provider, I'm in the Research Triangle Park, not going to restart that business. They didn't need me. And I had a technology company and networking things, and they had enough people doing that. And I really was alone. And so I went and, went to okay, where's some networking things? And I went to, I think Apex's, networking function and maybe one in Cary. And I started meeting people, and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do. What do I have to offer here? And like Martin said, I've been a digital guy since the beginning of digital. I actually had an ARPANET email address when I was at the Department of Defense. So this is all I've kind of done. And I thought, you know what? The networking things weren't working. And I said, I need to up my game there. And I found BNI, Business Networking International. And I met Steve. I was in the same group as Steve there. And I said, okay, this makes a lot more sense here because there's accountability, there's a structure, there's a system. I get systems and processes and those kinds of things. I get this. And then I figured out, you know what? I'm going to go back to my stuff I do, which is the digital world. And there was a network called Ning. And Mark Andreessen, now a huge, he was the guy that behind Mosaic at the time, which was the first browser. He created a company called Ning, and you could have your own social network. But the thing is, you could only have one. Well, we wanted to do one in every area code in the country. So Inside 919 was for the 919 area code, 303 in Denver. And I put a little business plan to him, and we ended up he got it. He sent me an email back. I've got it somewhere where he said, sure, you can do it. So we got, I think, 384 networks. Okay.
Wow.
So we started this stuff doing online, and that's when I met Martin. And as soon as I met Martin, Martin had a great network that all he had to do, because people didn't know and trust me. I was this guy from Colorado, and all he had to do is say, "Hey, Pat's a good guy. He's trying to do this stuff." And bing, folks were joining our network like this. And I would say, "Listen, no, you can't put up a picture of money. You can't put up a logo. It has to be you. You can't say coolest guy in the world. It has to be you, because we're trying to connect you with people." Mm-hmm. And I met, so we started that Inside Now in 9. Martin starts moving it, and I met Steve Hand and Bill Davis and Tim Moore and Dan Scala and Gary Tomlinson, Whitney Hill and Jim Vogel, and we created this group. So the point was, I realized that even when we had this network, people really still weren't understanding how to go to a networking function and network. And even though there was Steve there helping folks, and so when we did something Inside 919, we'd have a lot of people show up for it. We were a great community, and so I decided to go and create this training. And Martin, do you mind if I share my screen real quick, because I have my course? So I do things with mind maps. So I'm a mind mapper rather than a screen guy. And so If you look at this, you can see this is my mind map, and you'll see the book. And so this is what Jane got kind of from us, and the audio recording. So beginning questions, blah, 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 And so I would do this thing, and I did it for 3 years to folks at Inside 919. And the thing is that we found out it worked. People created businesses. Quite frankly, there's probably 10, 20 businesses that came out of Inside 919 that are multi-million-dollar operations that have tons of people working for them. They were really good. So that's where this was. And you'll see mind share, it's a frame of mind, positioning. So this is what actually Jane had to get with the recordings on this to kind of write the book. The main thing is when my dad went to his reward, I looked around and said, all my kids are back in Colorado. And I said goodbye to my great friends there. And I came back. And before, though, Martin said, "Pat, I really like that stuff. I'm using it. I'm working it. Can I teach that? Because you don't even like teaching this stuff, Pat. You're like Oz. I want to be the guy behind the curtain giving people buckets of water to destroy witches with. You know what I mean? And bring me the broom back." And so I said, "Martin, here's the thing. I know you'll end up doing a better job than I did. You're already in this stuff. You're the top trainer." I mean, I was honored because he's the top trainer in North Carolina. And I said, yes. And so he put the people you'll meet. This is people Martin put together. And I will just say, this book is a reflection of the strategies and techniques that are in the book. It all ends up being who you know. Will you do what you say you will do? Can you be counted on to deliver? And if you are, good things like this happen. So that's my story, Martin.
Yeah. And I want to add to it is the other reason is after I learned it from Pat and we built the course, I wanted to really prove to myself, can I teach people without Pat and they get results? And one of the turning points was a graphic designer that did, we'll pink below the graphic on this, is there's a early testimonial of her talking about how she literally, Deborah Hoover from Spotted Dots doubled her business in 90 days. So I needed to be able to prove I could take your ideas without you being right there with me and train people and get results as well, because I had already applied your principle and I was getting higher return on investment with prospects and getting better quality prospects and enjoying my customers more. But now, can I get other people to do it? So that was the important piece for me, is to be able to prove to myself that was doable.